What's up, everybody? It's Joe La Puma. You were watching the Complex Sneakers podcast. As always, I'm joined by my two friends, my two co-hosts. First off, to my right, Mr. Matt Welty.
Put a little sauce on that.
Yeah, a little sauce, because, you know, I've been here since 7:45. Why not? No, you got here before me. To my left, who I'm talking about, Mr. Brendan Dunne.
What up?
What time did you get here today? Because I was early.
I don't know.
Okay.
Nah,
right.
I
Way to kill the bit.
you
I walked
sleep-
in at like
did you
8.
sleep in-
I walked in at 8:15.
What do you want from me?
Did you sleep in the office?
I walked in at 8:15. I was like, I'm definitely going to be the
Slept
first one
walked
here.
in
He was
at
already here.
6:30.
You ever do that, Joe?
Sleep in the office?
Yeah.
No.
Not once?
No. But
Welty?
Yeah.
So did you ever come back to the office late and like be here till 2 a.m.?
I don't know if I came back. I just remember the one
Never
day.
left.
I think we mentioned out here. It's like that. I had to write that John Michael Wozniak story.
Oh.
Michael Jordan's.
Yeah, Joe hit the shrug.
There was
Yeah.
like a hard deadline on that, and I think we were also unveiling Victor Cruz's Sneaker Room collaboration. They were both like those wide features with the big images, and I'm like,
Yeah.
both of these are due tomorrow, and they're not done yet.
The latest.
Do you remember what time you went to bed at the office?
Man, it may have been like 3 in the morning.
And where did you sleep? This is at the old complex office at Rockefeller Center.
Remember, we were in that row
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah.
And the men's bathroom was right there, and there was that weird big like
You
circular
thought he was going to
couch.
say he slept in the bathroom?
No, there was that like circular couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I slept on that.
Curled
Wow.
up on there.
I think my latest was when James Gandolfini died. I was playing soccer at Pier 40.
What was the stat sheet looking like?
Oh, I mean, 2 assists, maybe 2 goals.
2 goals?
I was good at soccer.
Yellow
Okay.
card.
Donnie Kwok will
He'll attest to that.
probably that was back then. Yeah, definitely a little aggro. Probably
What was
yellow
on
card.
feet though for the soccer
Probably
game?
a yellow card, and then maybe another threat when the ref, when he was looking at me like this, like he was going to take
was
the,
gonna book you?
the
Yeah.
second yellow card out, and then I relaxed.
Did you get all in his face?
Pier 40, you know, they try to attack the legs and things like that. But when, unfortunately, James Gandolfini died, I came back to the office to write
The legendary eulogy.
a eulogy, and that was a late one. But yeah,
Can we, I want to talk about box scores real quick. And, you know, when we talked about John Donahoe last week,
yes.
Oh yeah.
and I was trying to remember in the moment whether or not maybe he had played basketball. John Donahoe played basketball at Dartmouth.
Oh, he would
he
rinse
earned a
you.
JV letter as a freshman on the squad. He's 6'5", Welty. This
What
is
are
a
you
quote.
doing?
Donahoe had a decent single season, scoring 34 points and pulling down 32 rebounds in a season.
Bro, he's running you
He's
out of
6'5".
He's running
He
you
played
out
in
of
the
the
Ivy
Jersey City
League.
YMCA. You kidding?
Are you still standing by your claim that you will beat Nike CEO John Donahoe in a game of one-on-one?
Yeah, I'll throw elbow to his back. I said.
Okay.
Are you,
see,
you're
that's what
standing
was
by,
happening
even
at the
now that you
soccer
know
league,
that
too.
he played in college?
Yeah.
He's 6'5"?
I'll throw elbow
You know
to
what
his back.
Donnie would say to you? All that deadlifting don't matter here. That's what he would say to you.
I was hoping we could humble him a little bit.
He said,
but...
"Listen, you could. Donnie would be like this to you. Although that Instagram story,
Wait, Donnie
deadlift,
meaning John Donahoe? Is it?
Yeah,
Or- yeah.
Did I say it right?
No, yeah, I
Donnie.
didn't know.
Yeah. He'd be like this to you. All that deadlifting on Instagram before 7:30 a.m. It doesn't matter here. And then
Also though he'll probably like be gone from Nike in like a few years before the game even gets set up, right?
made it,
Brendan? Am I wrong?
Went dark. You know,
Am I wrong?
had a bit and then it
No,
went
no,
dark.
no. I'm just right. Probably, maybe.
Yeah, I would think so.
Oh God, you guys!
Well, hopefully we'll make it happen and we'll find out the truth.
You got your FSR hoodie on today? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a little warm in here, but I had to show up for the team. You know what I was doing this weekend?
I know what you were doing because I actually got an invite. I don't get invites from you two, but I get invites from people
boy.
who you're with.
Oh boy.
You're hanging
Respect.
out with Abdul, right?
Yeah, our
Yes,
friend
and
Abdul,
Abdul
who was on the
invited me,
podcast. Go back, listen to that episode.
and who may be on the podcast later because from what the information I gathered, even though I couldn't make the little rendezvous that you two had, he had a certain shoe on.
Yes, Abdul was wearing the List Nike Air Force One, DJ Clark Kent's
How they look in
upcoming
person?
collaboration. Pretty spicy. It's a colorful shoe. It looks like no Air Force One I've ever seen before.
Wow, that's okay.
We
so
were walking around. People wanted to know what he had on feet. You know, we said no pictures, please.
I saw his IG story. Were you getting stopped a lot?
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, look at him. He had his little Bam Bam baklavas on in Soho. You can't miss the guy.
Did Abdul,
Can't miss him.
Did Abdul finally confess to you what he does for a living?
I made a few jokes about it, but we didn't get in depth about it. But yeah, Abdul said he misses you both.
Yeah, I would have liked to be there, but I was in Bayshore.
Better things to do, I guess.
Not necessarily, but it was a close friend's 40th birthday.
Okay. I went by Extra Butter. spoke to our friend Bernie and reminded him that he has one of the highest rated episodes of the Complex Sneakers podcast of all time. This was at the Extra Butter Russ and Daughters Puma launch.
Nice. It was dry.
Clyde was there.
In LES, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Clyde invited me. I couldn't make it. Shouts to Clyde. You know, long, complex friend, doing great things at Puma. Shouts to Sneaker Box Clyde. Known him for a while. You got to catch up with him?
You had to clarify on that because you're like, oh, Clyde. But
no, maybe Walt?
not Clyde. But
you're talking about them doing a Puma Clyde, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Clyde,
you're like, oh, Clyde was
and
there.
Clyde works at Puma. People
Was
will
Clyde
figure it
Frazier
out.
there?
No.
That's what
Sneaker
I thought.
Box Clyde was there.
Was Clyde Drexler there? Sorry. All right. Just naming Clydes. Yeah, shouts to Sneaker Box Clyde, though.
One thing Bernie mentioned to me as I was telling him that he has one of the highest rated episodes of this podcast ever, go back, watch that, listen to it, is that there was some moment in there where he was trying to deliver a specific message, some thesis, and we cut him off. I can't imagine us ever cutting somebody off, but apparently there's a message he still needs to deliver, so maybe we'll have him back
I
someday.
spent the last 10 years
Wait a
crafting
minute.
this
Like,
thesis, and they just
he
cut
wanted
me off.
He wanted to get bars off that he didn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bernie, we apologize. Or I apologize on behalf of the crew.
You guys want to talk? Let's get into the details. Let's open the box and get into some design details. You want to talk this big Air Max, big bubble?
The Air Max 186, yeah, we should talk about it. Welty, do you like the big bubble Air Max 186?
It's cool.
Not a glowing
Like
endorsement.
it's cool. I don't know. It's
And you're an Air Max guy.
yeah.
You like OG
it's
style Air
nice.
Maxes.
It's not. I'm not super hyped on it, and I'm not oh whatever. I don't care. But it's somewhere in between.
I was so excited for this because it's always interesting when they bring back an OG style that's never really been brought back before. And this is kind of a mythical version of the Air Max 1 with the even chunkier bubble. And it's the type of thing that they do to satisfy purists like us. But then we see the first images. Your friend Tommy Trigger posted a video on Instagram. And the shape just looks a little wonky. And I feel stupid because I had just made this proclamation about this is the shoe that I'm really excited
This is
about.
the only shoe I care about.
And then you see it. And, it's kind of this thing of the retro versions of shoes are the ones sometimes that are seared into your memory. And then when they do a version of the sneaker that's really tuned to the OG specs, that OG style looks off to you. Like how they have some of those Dunk 85s from the past couple of years that to us look wonky, even though they look more like the original Dunk. It's just disconnect.
I had that conversation in the past where some people are so tied, like you said, tied to the retros, but they don't realize that the retros are actually kind of bad. Especially in that 2005, 2006 era where nowadays when they do retros, they pay a lot of attention to what they're doing.
Working with people at Nike.
They source the original shoes,
going to
try
the
to find the
Department of Nike
original
archives.
last, try to actually recreate it. Back then, 2005, 2006, if you just look at the shoes, they're so far off from. It's almost like you had the original in your mind somewhere. You had an image of what the shoe looked like, and then you kind of just tried to make it off of memory rather than sitting down and creating it one-to-one.
Yeah.
Or even, I don't think the brands even invested that much into the idea of
At that point.
retro at that point, that they're like, hey, we're going to give you all these time and resources to do this. So you look at some of those Jordans and even Adidas, and it's they don't have the right details on it. Everything's off. But some people are so nostalgic for those because that's when they first got into shoes that they'll ride or die by that one being the best.
That
and you're
specific shape.
And you're oh, maybe it wasn't.
You know what shape I actually like in retrospect is I think it was 2017.
In retrospect.
Hey,
Atta
Air
boy.
Max 1s. I think those were the 30th anniversary pairs. And I was a little bummed out the other day because I realized that I only have the blue pair from that year and not the red pair. And then I was like, you know what? It's all good. I'll get the red pair that's coming out this year because it's got the big bubble. But now I'm seeing it and I kind of
Maybe not.
want the Joe, do you care about these? I feel like have I ever seen Joe wear a pair of Air Max 1s?
No.
I have the red pair. And
Okay.
I actually think
From-
I have
from 2017?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't wear them a lot. I just like to have them.
Is that the only Air Max 1 you have?
I'm surprised you don't have the Atmos Air Max ones.
No, I don't have that. I have the
I would think you
95.
would, right?
No, the Beast Atmos.
Yeah, I just have the 95 version of that, which I recently wore. I don't have a lot of Air Max ones, no.
Okay.
You know which ones I really liked that I didn't get, though, was the crepe ones.
Oh, the original?
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole pack, the hemp with the crepe, the burst.
So I had the
90.
burst. Do you remember
Yeah, of
bursts? That pack was a big Finish Line 3-pack. I got the bursts. I think Rudy had the Air Max ones.
I think maybe the best artist collaboration of
Eminem.
all time is the Eminem's.
Slim Shady Air Burst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that pack was great.
When are we going to get bursts back?
I don't know. That's a good
I
shoe.
just don't think
No,
they're ever gonna they've done like the Air Max 94, which is like a real similar shoe.
Yeah, same bubble.
It's just never gonna look the same. So it's like, what's the point of doing the burst when literally the whole design language is that it has this big honking.
I remember we were talking about like retros and the shapes. I remember the whole big remastered program with Jordan. I remember the biggest
They're like,
one.
we're gonna charge $220 for this and make them in like BS colorways.
The biggest one that sticks out was I think the Olive 4s were part of the remaster, right?
Olive 4?
Pretty sure.
Olive?
What is an Olive 4?
Excuse me. I remember the Oreo 4s were a big part of the remastered.
Yes.
I knew it started with the no.
Yes.
Remastered program.
Back
That was
the retro plus
and I remember
LS
just
type
being like,
colorways.
oh, they're really stepping it up. And then
I mean, you ate on that release.
I
Basically.
literally ate.
Still DS. I have like 2 or 3 pairs in the basement.
Whoa,
You
yeah,
ate.
talk to him.
You
Yeah.
ate. Didn't you bought 8 pairs?
Yeah,
Right?
and
Yes.
it's Oreo, so you ate it. Man,
bring
we
those
are
out.
on fire today.
I
And
feel
then
like Jay-Z.
And I know this is tangentially related, but talk about retro, dunks and things like that were disappointing. The one, and I don't know if I think I've said it, but I literally wore those purple and black fragment dunks one time.
And they
the
folded
Pharrell
up.
shoot.
Oh yeah.
And
that-
listen, I'm not a big like.
wasn't
Oh,
the quality was
I'm not even a big.
straight cheeks on those, right?
I'm not even a big like. Oh, the toe box. First of all, I kind of walk on my toes a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
People always say.
Really?
Toe stepper.
Yeah, like that's what people like.
That's where the
A
calves
line
come
stepper.
from.
That's what people have said, but you've definitely said it, and like my friends have said it. Like I tend to like
Okay.
walk. So
Tiptoeing
I'm never
in
a big
Jordans.
like the toe box is creasing or I wore those once for like an hour and a half to 2 hours on the Pharrell shoot, and the toe box was basically like crinkled to all hell. I only wore them once, and that was like
The Marianas Trench was like
Folding like envelopes under pressure.
that was
Ferrigno on
like
coke.
one recent time when I was like, damn. When people complain about quality,
Yeah.
I know what they're saying.
Yeah. I think I had that shoe and ended up selling it because that was at a moment where I was accruing so many just random GR dunks, and that fragment pair didn't feel that special. or
Well, it was
needed.
so funny because there was like the build up to that.
Yeah.
Our good friend Mooby was
Hmm.
trying to, or I don't know if he did, but was trying to unload that like what was it that pink pair?
Okay. An older fragment dunk, yeah.
Yeah, and like people
Wait, the pink and yellow?
the pink and yellow
Yeah.
Oh,
one. Like,
that's one that I'm waiting
well,
for.
that's
still,
the one that
even
was
with
like
the quality.
it was going around. You know,
Dunk
you
the
saw
movie.
it on like you'd see it on Hidden posted all the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then everyone got super hyped for it, and then those shoes dropped, and then
Maybe Mooby could find the dime Reebok workouts that are lost.
lost in Greece.
Yeah, the
some
Black
some
Cat,
Greek shipping magnet has it
the
on
Black
his
Cat
boat.
dime Reebok
Yeah,
workout low.
what happened? People,
Okay, so-
people who listen to this podcast, they haven't heard the story yet. What
Yeah.
happened with your Reeboks? Because
Okay.
I keep seeing you mention it, and I'm kind of like, what
Okay,
is he
so this is
talking
what
about?
happened.
He's in the
This is what
Mediterranean
happened.
with it. What's going on here?
Let
I know
me
you
just
come from the
find-
Mediterranean, but tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, so it was a workout, right? I want to make sure. Okay, so
Joe La Puma buying sneakers on the resale market.
no.
Okay.
This is off the Reebok website. Which,
No,
hold on.
You Googled Reebok and then got
He just Googled Reebok.
sent to a.
You know who I am, right?
Ask Jeeves. I know.
Bing Chat GPT
I know.
AI couldn't help you out.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
what
wow.
happened?
Wow. Okay. So, my first purchase of 2023 was supposed to be the Dime Workout Plus Black Suede.
Mm-hmm.
I was dubbing it the Black Cat Reebok Workout. Have you guys ever seen me in a Reebok workout?
I would love to, but no.
Okay, so that was my first one. I think Mooby posted it.
I don't
And
think
that's
I've ever seen you in a Reebok shoe.
G units?
I didn't wear the G units.
Okay.
I've never.
No. Okay. So that was my first purchase of 2023.
Uh-huh.
And what happened, I was excited. It was cheap. I just went on the thing. I was like, these
And
are
this is true, you Googled Reebok? And you just clicked on the first link?
Probably. I probably saw them on like Mooby's IG story, and then I was like, oh, I want those. And I put Dime Reebok workout, and I ordered them. And I ordered from the Reebok Greece site. Okay?
Were you on Teddy Santis' laptop? What was going on here, man?
so, shipment, I forgot that I got them, and then like
At what point did you realize that you were on the Reebok Greece website?
when the DHL stuff started popping up, and it was like, it wasn't like stuck in Secaucus, New Jersey. It was stuck in some place that I didn't recognize. Yeah. And then I finally called up.
It was stuck in Gibraltar.
Yeah, I just finally called up Reebok U.S. customer service. I was like, hey, do you have any insight? And they're like, no, we don't work with that. We don't work with Reebok Greece. I'm waiting for these $120 shoes or whatever. Yeah. And then finally, literally, I'm going to put this in here. Mm-hmm. All caps, we have received your return items. And they went back to the Greece warehouse, and I never got them.
They wouldn't let you have them.
And now I'm over it.
Reebok Greece wouldn't let you cook?
Nah. Now I'm over it. So that was my first attempt at a purchase of 2023. It didn't start out great. Yeah.
Wow.
But those are fire.
I hope that they find their way to you somehow.
And listen, maybe my sneaker buying skills have to get a little better.
No, I actually like this because this is the kind of story that you look for people when you're interviewing them and you say, oh, did you ever go to some great lengths to get a pair of shoes? Victor Cruz was on here talking about, I think he went to Switzerland, right, to get a Jordan 1, or he sent somebody out there. And I want to, get the full story once this comes to its completion, because I feel it's not done yet when Joe La Puma actually goes to Greece and procures these Reeboks from a warehouse.
Just a follow
somewhere
doc,
in Crete.
A follow doc.
Yeah, that could be.
I just
really
imagine like
we'll find a sponsor.
You have some like grandson or whatever who's going to visit his grandparents in Greece, and he's forced to like stuff the shoes in his luggage and like personally like.
Do you think I would do that?
No, someone. You have someone who's personally bringing them back to you.
Yeah,
I think you might do that.
Maybe Mubi hooks it up.
You should be so lucky.
He doesn't owe me, but we had a great dinner that I got COVID with. That was the COVID dinner. The COVID dinner was with Mubi.
Wait, you got COVID at that dinner?
Yep.
I had no idea.
Yep.
When we were all together?
Yep.
This is why we don't invite you to dinner.
I know. I respect it.
This is why. This is why you're always absent.
And that was the dinner. Great dinner. Worth it. The meatballs were great. The COVID, not so great. All right.
We don't need a BAPE update, right?
No.
I'm obsessed with this. Go read what I wrote on the website.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 quick things, and then we can move on.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, because I know we didn't talk about it the other day, but Seth Rollins wearing the big red boot.
Mischief, red boot. How many more weeks do we have to talk about what's the over-under? Like I have a couple. We have
on
a couple.
The big red boot?
We have a couple shoots this week. Are we going to ask about the big red boot?
I'm off it.
Okay.
He hit Miz with the stomp.
Yeah.
I'm not into wrestling, so
he's into wrestling more than me now, I think.
We watched the Elimination Chamber.
I missed it.
Sami Zayn unfortunately lost. But the other thing I want to talk about that I've been meaning to talk about for months on this show.
Oh wow.
That it always keeps slipping my mind.
Let's hear it.
But it's the one.
This will be good.
It's the one clip that's making its way around YouTube, and we haven't discussed it yet. So you get recommended.
You have no idea what this is,
YouTube
right?
Shorts all the time.
Is it the Khaled?
And yes, and
we talked about this.
No, we didn't. We did not.
I don't know.
We did not talk about this on the podcast.
We didn't.
No, we talked about talking about it on the podcast.
Okay.
We never talked about it.
Go for it.
So. You get recommended the YouTube Shorts, right? And there's the super viral ones. Mm-hmm. And the one popped up, and it was like the time that DJ Khaled annoyed Joe La Puma.
Yes.
And it's from Khaled's actual sneaker shopping episode, which most people don't remember because it's the closets, which is the viral moment. But the sneaker shopping where you were at Shoe Gallery in Miami. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's when he starts making up all the names of the Jordans. And Joe's like sitting there trying to ask
patient as
he goes like this, but wait. He goes, the leather.
You're trying to ask him a question.
Yes.
You keep on coming back, trying to circle back to it, and
yes.
Khaled's just like making up stuff.
I see it.
I think it has like millions of
views. 900,000 on YouTube Shorts, I think. Let me tell you, he did not annoy me. Khaled doesn't annoy me. Khaled is great content, but this was a funny compilation. That was a great weekend. We shot the sneaker shopping and his closet in one weekend. It was great.
Pre-COVID, everything
I'm
was
still
great.
waiting for Khaled to... where's my camera? Right there? I'm still waiting for Khaled to invite me back into the new closet. I know he has a new
I thought you were going to
closet.
say waiting for him to come on our podcast or something.
That too. But I would go down to Miami and shoot that new closet. I know he has. He's always restocking his collection with new things. I'm still trying to get into a part 2. Actually, it would be part 3 because we did Assad's closet.
Was there a time where you were in the running to become Assad's godfather or something like that?
No, but we brought him a cake for his birthday, and then we did Assad's.
It's a joke.
Okay,
total joke. Yeah,
this is great.
Having said all that,
It's time for our guest.
let's do it. Our guest on today's podcast turned a summer job working at Foot Locker into an ever-evolving 30-year career in the industry where he held some of the most important jobs at your favorite footwear brands. He started at Nike as an entertainment rep before going to Vibe magazine, where he would continue making relationships and honing his skills that would eventually land him titles of Global Footwear Product Director, Footwear Business Director, Global Merchandising Director back at the Swoosh. He then would switch over to the Three Stripes as their Senior Director in 2018. There he was instrumental in the Pharrell, Beyoncé, and other key endorsement projects. Today we'll get into all that history with our friend Astor Chambers. Astor, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this.
It's great to
Been
be
a
here.
long time coming.
Long overdue.
Last time I saw you, we were in... No, not the last time I saw you. Last time I saw you was ComplexCon, but I think the first sit-down, it was me, you, and Wex. We went to Soho House in
Yes.
West Hollywood.
Yes.
And you were at Adidas at the time. We're going to get into your history. Adidas was kind of like more recent, but man, you got a ton of history that we're going to dig into.
Love it. Love it. Looking forward to it. It's good to see you all.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about how, he's been reaching out for some time to get me on the show, and timing just wasn't all in alignment, but now we are all the way.
If there's one thing
aligned.
I'm good at, it's bugging people who worked at footwear brands to
I love
talk
that.
to me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's no bugging. I look forward to this.
Beautiful. And like Joe said, it's good to see you because just even from the footwear alone,
Yeah.
obviously you're a great guy, but the footwear, we got to talk about the footwear real quick because you brought something special, something
Yeah,
spicy.
so I thought since I'm coming on the show, I don't do this often, since I'm here. So I've heard that these have been talked about pretty widely, these denim 3s, which I actually, one of my stints at Jordan when I was heading up footwear, I think one of the beauties of these roles is that sometimes you could spin some different things.
Yeah.
And I had a developer that I was working with on a multitude of projects, obviously, and I just had him spin these in a khaki pair, which were great, but we only made like 3 pairs. So I kind of
2008, 2009.
Yes. No, more. Yes, it had to be right because 10 I left. So we spun these. I kept them on ice and then wore them a couple times and not thinking anything of it. Years later, everybody's like, yo, there's these coveted 3s, denim 3s that were made in a tan pair, only 3 pairs each. And I'm like, oh, so this has become a thing now.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess I need to figure out who has the other pair.
Yeah. Do you know who has the other?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I know who has 2 of the 3.
Okay.
I tell you that much.
Okay.
Do you ever think, like having all those special shoes in the market for them in today's environment? Because, everyone like PJ Tucker, Khaled, everyone wants to acquire these shoes and flex. And you have some of these shoes and you see the Sotheby's auctions and stuff like that. In the back of your head, are you ever like, I can just retire off of this one day and like, no?
No, you know what? I think because I come from a time frame where I did this out of the love and the passion, right? Like, I call myself first generation footwear consumer, meaning we procured product as a means of expressing who we are. So everything that I had was a true expression of me, like it was telling my story. So it never was like today, cats are getting after shoes because I know I can get 3, 4, 8 times more for the shoe.
You're not feeling that?
In certain cases, I might. However, from the beginning, it was more so a case of, no, these are expression of me. There was something, a memory, a time, or a look on these that I'm like, this is me, right? So it's slightly different. So no, I've had slight conversations and people tell me, yo, your collection, what you could do with, and I'm like,
But I mean, in the back of your head, you're like 20,000, like I guess stash, it's like $20,000 is $20,000, you know?
Yeah, we got college tuitions coming up, so I mean,
Okay.
this might be a conversation.
You see a little khaki 3 go on Sotheby's, right? Don't point to my man. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's the third person.
Exactly.
That's the third
Exactly.
pair.
Exactly. That's the third pair. You
Yep.
found him.
Yep.
You found him. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Good on you.
Astor, we always talk about what everybody else is wearing. I feel foolish even talking about my shoes when you brought the denim Jordan 3s on, but we have to check it off the list. So I got the Concepts Mephisto match on. I wear these quite frequently.
I'm doing some of my favorite Nike Air Maxes over the years, the CDG 180s.
180s.
Shoe from another friend of ours celebrating his 50th birthday. These are Hikmet's Mizuno Contenders.
Happy birthday, Hikmet.
Dope.
Shouts to Hikmet.
Hope you had some ice cream.
Yes. We were talking, Dunne, I think you want to kick it off because, like, the first thing, and looking at some of the podcasts you've done, and then even on like your LinkedIn and stuff, is like the first thing was an entertainment marketing rep for Nike, it seems. But was that like?
No, that wasn't. Actually, the first gig was in Eakin. Which
Okay,
I'm sure
so
you
we
were
were
all very familiar with.
Yeah.
So we were wondering if that was the Eakin role, or Eakin came even before that.
Eakin came before that, but even before the Eakin,
I love this. I love this.
There was
Take us back.
I'm gonna take you all the way back. So born and raised
LaGuardia.
here in New York. What'd you just say?
LaGuardia.
This dude
Come
really
on.
did
Oh,
his
yeah, he's
research,
sharp.
B. Let's
Come
get
on.
busy.
Yeah.
LaGuardia
You and
High
Cedric.
School of the Performing Arts. So for those who don't know, the famed school like Leroy dancing on tables. And so I went to that school as an art major. Was there for 4 years. Senior year of high school, walking around the class, in the hallways, and our senior class advisor was like, "Hey, Astor, I need you for something." I was like, "What's going on?" He was like, "I need you to take this lady around the school for the day." And I was like, "All right, I'll do it," thinking nothing of it. So I took her to all the different departments. She had a project to find the correlation between sports and arts. So I said, "Cool." Took her to dance, took her to our art area, took her to drama, took her to instrumental, took her to the vocal department, and walked her all around for the day. At the end of the day, she was like, "You know what? I really enjoyed your company. Would you mind coming by the office someday?" So I'm like, "Okay." This is 96. This is 92.
Okay.
This is 92, ending high school, about to go to college. And so as we're going through this, she invites me down to the office, and I see these individuals who are like in from Portland, Oregon. I come to find out she works for Nike. And the people she brought in were these different designers who were coming to figure out, why are people purchasing our shoes at the rate in which they are and not running or playing basketball in these? Like, in Beaverton, they had no idea, like the why. So they would come out and do what we call focus groups. So they would have me come in and they would throw a ton of shoes on the table and just ask my point of view.
This
so
is at the Nike office in New York?
Absolutely. And so this was before it was over here on like 14th, and now it's somewhere else. It was a small brownstone on the Lower East Side.
Right.
Great little quaint brownstone. And, everybody would come in. I'd bring my people. So then I'd bring some of my friends from the neighborhood in to kind of talk about some shoes. And they had me on this rotation. When anybody came in town, I would take them around to different courts, different neighborhoods, different people to engage on, okay, but why did you buy that? Like, what was it? And you're not playing in them.
And that's what I love. One of your earliest points during those times were like, we wear running shoes not to run in. And it was this whole thing. And I think to your point, like in Portland, they're always thinking function. And they were tapping you to be like, we are wearing running shoes not to run in them.
Boom.
And now it sounds like so like duh, but it was
obvious at this point.
Sounds so obvious, but to see it like in the neighborhood and what you were saying, it must have been like a wake-up call for them.
A major wake-up call, and I think that's also the beginning of how some of youth culture started to birth itself, right? Because at that point, you have consumers deciding how they want to implement this into their daily regimen in their life and their lifestyle, which started this culture that they, again, because Nike is so sharp, innovation, function, this is what it's being made for, which that authenticity was needed for it to hit the way that it did, for then consumers to say, but I want to appropriate it for me and my style and wear it this way. And that was the beauty of that marriage that started the beginning of this culture that we are all very much aware of, we all live in, we all work in. And so, that's where it really started. So I literally then went off to college and they had me doing surveys. I was handing out surveys at college and I'm getting paid no money, but being a sample size 9, there was a certain level of compensation.
The packs coming in.
So you were getting Jordans before they came out and stuff like that?
In college?
In college.
Which ones?
I remember the 8. I will never forget this. I went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, historically black university on the Eastern Shore Peninsula of Maryland. So it has a large contingent of kids from Baltimore, D.C., very small New York. It wasn't a lot of us from New York. Philly, all over. So the D.C. and Baltimore contingent, I mean, fashion was a big thing for D.C. and Baltimore. Like, they set the tone, and I got to see that whole look and that whole vibe. And so I was getting the 8s before they even came out. So now remember, at this time, as we're growing up, when a new Jordan came out, like,
it was a thing.
No, that was a major thing. Yeah. And it wasn't a thing where somebody would get them before coming out, which is now common.
Yes.
You're seeding on people before something hits the market. That wasn't a thing then. It was like, no, we're all waiting until, what was it, Saturday morning?
Yep.
Saturday mornings for this thing to drop. That's the only time you're going to see it live. You know, I'm walking around the campus with the 8s.
In college, though.
College.
I would argue that having cool sneakers in college is better than even having like early sneakers in high school.
Yeah, that's the
college.
apex
It's
right
like
there. Yeah.
you're scrapping.
Come on,
college
you're
is totally different.
So I'm walking around the campus with the 8s, and they're like, "Yo, are those the new? What is it?" Because you also got to think about the design ethos of the 8. It was so very different
Yes.
with the straps, right? So coming off the 7 and the 6, to see that for the first time, somebody's like, is that what is that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, no, these are the 8s. They're like, oh, here you go again, man. You're Jordan
Amazing.
people taking care of you.
Just
Because
wait a couple months, you'll get 'em.
I'd already built this reputation, right? And repetition is reputation, where they've seen me do this already with other shoes, but now to see me with a Jordan, it's like, you done did it.
Something's going on,
Again.
yeah.
So 4 years of that, you got to love this story. My family's from Jamaica. So my mother and father came here early 70s, and they came with the vision that every and anything is possible, right? So I didn't have a lot of the weight and the barriers of things are not possible because of the color of your skin or where you live, da-da-da. So I always knew everything was possible. When I graduated from college, my mom was like, look, Nike needs to give you a job. I'm like, oh, why? Look, you've made them millions of dollars with the insight and the things that you provide. I'm like, Mom, look, don't ruin a good thing here. I'm getting these shoes. I get to go to the office. I get to do all these things. Like, don't mess with a good thing. She was like, no, they need to give you a job. So what did I do as a young man who listens to his parents? I said, all right. So I called my friend, the young lady who first met at high school, who I now built a significant relationship with, and she's still one of my dear, dear friends to this date, Betsy Parker, amazing human being.
Sister to eventual
we're
Nike
going to get
CEO.
to all that because you got to look at all these seeds and how they all going to start playing and the weaving into our quilt here.
Take us.
So Betsy now, she's counseling me on this summer in terms of, hey, if you want to work for Nike, you should work retail, get some retail experience. So every summer from college, I come home and work at Foot Locker. So I was at Foot Locker on 34th when that was the Mecca. So many people. So that's another funny story. Because working the sales floor.
We got Foot Locker or sneaker retail stores for days.
He was in New Hampshire, not the 34th Street one, but he was.
Right. But so I'm on 34th Street working one summer. I think it might have been my junior or sophomore year. I don't remember the year, but the Carnivores dropped.
Yeah.
And the Carnivores dropped in the original colors of the green, black, and purple. But then I had on the black and purple before they came out. So could you imagine me on the sales floor at Foot Locker 34th Street wearing these shoes, and my manager's like, dude, you can't do this. Everybody's looking at your shoes.
It's the same thing at Finish Line, right?
And they
Betsy said I can.
Right.
Right?
But here's the problem, Joe. They can't convert that into
They
sales.
used to, so when I would try to wear at Finish Line, when I would try to wear Jordans that were from Athlete's Foot, they might have got a different colorway, or a mom and pop store, because it matched the uniform. They'd be like, can't wear them, and I would try every single time.
So look, it's the beauty and the curse, right, of getting the heat. So essentially, I would do that every summer because Betsy recommended that to set you up for a job, you need to have some real retail experience. So I said, cool. So I graduated from college. I interviewed for an Eakin role that happened to be in New York, which was awesome, and didn't get it. Didn't get the first Eakin role that I interviewed for.
And people, just in case they don't know, Eakin is a Nike product specialist.
Correct.
Eakin
Nike spelled backwards. Nike spelled backwards. Everybody started as an Eakin in the company, right? You go all the way back to like a Phil Knight.
You have to get the swoosh tattoo somewhere.
You don't have to, but I've been around in many ceremonies where people were getting them, and I definitely opted out for that.
And going back to Eakin, when you were working, I remember working retail, being on Nike Talk, and you know, when you're working retail, you get the knowledge of some things that, like, when you're not working at a sneaker store, you wouldn't have the knowledge. But when you would hear the word Eakin, that was like...
That was huge.
Oh, that
Eakin's coming in.
Exactly.
Eakin's coming in. I need to build a relationship with them so I can get a job. And it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I built a portfolio of potential candidates who worked at different retail spots who the company could tap to become the next potential Eakin, because there were so many people that were like, look, I would love to do what you're doing. I'd love to get in the company. How do you do it? I said, well, you become an Eakin, and you're already one step ahead by having retail experience. You're already like making your way towards this. So in not getting the first job, I was like, cool. But they were like, we brought somebody else in who had a little bit more experience, and what we want you to do is shadow them. So I shadowed them for 6 months, and I don't know if you have this piece of information, who that individual was. His name is Laz Alonso. I don't know if you know who Laz is now. Laz is a prominent actor who was in Avatar. I mean, he was in tons of movies, as you will look him up, still a dear friend to this day. He was the gentleman who got the first Eakin role. So I shadowed Laz for like 3 to 4 months. And New York was obviously a very key market, so it had multiple Eakins in it. So Laz was doing Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, not Long Island, in Jersey. North Jersey. So his counterpart did Manhattan, Harlem, it's all the same, Uptown, and then Long Island. And so that person left, and then I came in and took that role. So I got that role about 6 months out of college, and that was the start of my Nike career, my career within this footwear industry and culture. So it started way, way before that Eke and Roll, but it really started from the planting of that seed and that moment and that opportunity that you talk about seizing the opportunity. I didn't know what it was, but it was being present in that moment to build a relationship with somebody who would then help pour into me and direct me in terms of how I can get into this and succeed, and then be an advocate for me in rooms that I'm not present in.
Yeah. So this is your whole like MJ not making the basketball team moment and then just fueling your fire.
Essentially.
It's also the MJ's mom being like, the deal has to be right.
Boom.
That's what it reminds me of a little bit.
Perfect.
You know?
Boom.
You know?
Perfect.
Reminds me a little bit.
It was always,
they need
it's
to
all
give
the
you
way
a
there.
job.
All the way there. And
When your mom told you that, did you feel at all like she was right in that the imbalance was there of you were giving Nike more than you were getting back? Because I always think about kind of the relationship Nike has with these consumers where they make stuff for them and they market stuff to them, but are they giving enough? You know what I mean?
I think it was 1,000% that, because
There was an imbalance?
well, no, her view. You asked about her view.
Yeah.
I think her view was one of, wait a minute, I'm hearing more about Nike more than I ever did before. Nike's becoming a huge company. I see it on all these kids. I see all these things happening. Wait, is there any correlation to what you might be doing and you're not getting compensated? You've never told me about a check, which it wasn't about that. It was like a glorified internship. It was like the beginning of an internship program. And so I felt my compensation for what I was getting then was fine. She saw it as, okay, but now it needs to step up and reflect a little bit more of what they are getting off of this. You now need to be able to benefit in some enhanced way than you have been in the past. I think it was all the way that. It wasn't saying that they were taking full advantage of you or anything to that degree, because they did well by me for sure. I mean, they had me my freshman year of college. They flew me out to be in a sales meeting presentation.
Wow.
In Portland?
No, they always had sales meetings in different cities. So I think this was Arizona.
Okay.
So I flew into Arizona and I was on stage with one of the product leads talking about apparel and why we wear the things that we do and why color matters and why material matters and yada, yada, yada. And I'll never forget another funny story. At that sales meeting, Trevor Edwards had just started with Nike. And still to this day, he always tells the story of, Astor, one of the most inspiring things for me when coming to Nike was being able to see somebody on stage that looked like me, that was young. Now remember, Trevor's a grown man. This is a man with a job now. He has a job at Nike. But he sees this and he found that to be so inspiring for him and welcoming him to work at this brand and be a part of it in such a significant fashion. And look where his trajectory went. I mean, so many of those moments. But yeah, the Eakin job then took me into entertainment marketing, where that was the first time ever that entertainment marketing had a role outside of the Marina Del Rey office. So I don't know how familiar you are with but that was like another iconic thing of, I get to go to the LA Nike office and walk the room and get all the gear and do all the things.
A lot of the Hollywood connections lived out there.
So it was all Hollywood. So it was TV, movies, and music were all based.
Was you a woman named like Tracy or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tracy, what was her?
I don't know.
But it was Nikita, who was on the music side, who was my boss. And then there was somebody who was doing TV. So everybody would go to Marina Del Rey in LA, and that would be the Nike office. We had to create some form of a presence on the East Coast, because you think about it, in '98, this is when, from a music culture standpoint, East Coast was it.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the Mecca. And Nike played such a significant role in the lives of some of these icons, or soon-to-be icons. And we needed somebody to build these relationships and have these contacts. And now, more context, this was not when brands were paying people.
Right.
There was no paying of somebody to be a brand ambassador. This was solely based off of, there's an alignment, there's a connection, there's an authentic bond where these individuals want to be a part of, because it rounded out, again, their brand perception and image, i.e. a Fab or things to that degree, right?
Rule.
A job, right? A Eve. I mean, these are all the people that I built relationships with at the early stages of their lives.
So they were doing it in Hollywood. You were doing it in New York.
I was doing it in New York, but I was just music. So LA was, again, music on the West Coast, TV, all things TV, all things movie. I was just the one individual doing music from the East Coast. So I had to own New York. That was really the main part of my job description. Ensure that you're fully entrenched in the culture of music and what's taking place, and build those relationships. and work them through so that we have these brand advocates who are now out in the respective communities and worlds as extensions of our brand. And so for me, dope opportunity, coming from New York, coming from LaGuardia, where now a number of my colleagues are in the industry now,
Yeah.
right? Whether they're artists, whether they're executives.
Yeah.
So one of my best friends in the whole wide world to this day, Rob Walker, he graduated from LaGuardia, gets into the music business, and he's now trying to break this production group called the Neptunes. So he's bringing them up to New York in the studio. I'm coming to the studio with boxes of product to these two dudes wearing nothing but polo.
When is this?
So this is 98, 99. And so this is
Super
even
Thug
before,
era.
this is right before Super Thug,
Okay.
right?
Oh, wow.
So this is what I'm telling you. This is like way before
Yeah.
any of this even hit. So this is the ground swelling.
What are you giving Pharrell and Chad back in those days?
That's
in
a
terms of
great
Nike?
question. I'm thinking it was basic, not basic. It was Jordans.
Yeah.
It was all the things that we had in the portfolio that resonated, but it wasn't to like the Pharrell taste. Right now, we're like, if
Got
you
it.
send them something, you got to think it through.
What
now,
yeah.
Now, then it was just like, no, just get them some hot stuff because you got to remember the mindset then. They're just getting started. Nobody knows who they are. So for their manager, Rob, to have this Nike dude come in with boxes of Nike, it's like, yo, we done made it.
Was it like you getting the shoes at college when Ja Rule and Eve and Fab and Pharrell and Chad were on the come up, you bringing boxes of shoes? What was their reaction like? Even though they were about to blow up crazy, was like to get free shoes such a big thing for them?
They made it.
Yeah.
Yo, to come to the Nike office and to get a package, like that was a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I love Jada to this. Like, there's certain favorites. No, listen, there's certain favorites, and Jada was one. Like coming to the office to get a package, the level of joy and appreciation was on 1,000%. Where I think that piece has gone. I did witness it recently with Adidas, Jonah Hill.
Oh.
He was excited.
What was it?
No, when we worked on his product line,
Yeah.
Okay.
the level of appreciation that he showed every meeting.
Wow.
I mean, it was so humbling. It was one of the most beautiful things ever. Forget about what the product looked like. Forget about what we delivered to the marketplace. His appreciation for the process, the product, and the ability was reminiscent of that, what you just asked me.
And I bet that re-inspires you even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It reminds you of our why. And, you know, when you remember your why, you never lose your way. A wise young lady always told me. And when those moments happen, you remember the why. You don't get caught up in all the noise that's around you. But yeah, back in the day, them getting a package was significant. Put it in context, when I took the entertainment marketing role, Nike Town was just opening up. So I had trained all Nike Town in my Econ job.
Okay.
Now I'm coming to, all right, well, we're about to open this thing up. What can we do? Well, I got this young lady, Eve, who she'll come perform for free. She'll come having a relationship with her management team and all. This is where the culture was then.
Well, Jada called himself the Don in Nike Town, right?
Yeah,
you might have planted that seed.
How about
Talk
that?
About seeds.
Yeah, and his Nike Town was coming to the office to get the packages. But like a Jada, a Ja, a Fab, you know, and Clue was the one that orchestrated the
Desert
whole
Storm.
Fab thing.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that's very clear.
Yeah.
Like, and I applaud a Clue for this because he utilized his access to put his guy on and position his guy to then be able to benefit. Normally, people with something like this would do what? Oh no, this is my connect.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing somebody else to come in and get a piece of this. No, sir.
Yeah.
Clue was the complete opposite. Hey, I got my guy. I need you to take care of him.
So in the peak of that era when Jay-Z's rapping about Air Force Ones and all that, did Nike have a connection to him through that?
It was an interesting one with Jay. It wasn't super formal, but you got to understand where Jay and team come from. Like, they created that monster on their own. That wasn't brand affiliated. Like, Air Force Ones and all that was their thing. They just got down like that, which was even more beautiful.
Yeah.
To be honest, it was not a brand thing. It was like an authentic thing. And if you look at what he represents now, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
He's been doing this chess game for years, and then makes it work for him when it's appropriate to do so, which I love.
Do you remember meeting Fabolous for the first time?
Yes, came in the office, you know, young cat, just appreciative of all the things, appreciative for the time to be able to, because again, you're coming into the Nike office. I know now it seems like such a whatever thing.
Yeah.
So whatever thing, but then
He might come to the Nike office with Adidas on.
Yeah,
That's
you
how
know,
much he
geez,
cares
that's-
about it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Breaking down those barriers.
Yeah,
huh?
you know.
Well, you're not an employee, so you can do what you
Yeah.
want to do. But just
Thank
from a
you.
respect thing, it might be.
Yeah,
It might be the right thing to
let
do.
him know.
It might be the
Yeah.
right thing to do.
It's a free
carry on.
society.
Yeah, listen,
Yeah,
look. Yeah, don't.
I am who I am.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm gonna be who I'm gonna be.
Exactly.
I got it.
Yeah.
It was a different time. It was a really special, different time.
When Clue would be like, hey, one of my guys needs this shoe, how long would it take for you to get them?
It would depend. Great question. If it was something that we already had in inventory, because I also had to build out a small storage room and facility in the office. So I remember it was a cage.
Is that like the infamous cage that we all hear about that like throughout the years? Like I just remember being in passing, like hearing about like, oh, we got him out of the cage, or the cage. People came through, I went in the cage and got the seating.
Yes.
Well, describe that for people who may not know.
The cage was probably half of this space. It
Okay.
wasn't huge. So I didn't have a full-on inventory of everything. I kept very minimal whites.
Okay.
Because, that was pretty accessible from a retail standpoint. And I just tried to bring in some of the product that I thought was really going to resonate with some of our influencers and some of these advocates or artists that we were working with. And so I would do probably, a size run of 2 of every size and just have it in, but I had to build a cage because
Yeah.
you don't want things
Yep.
coming up missing. And so it probably, at times, I might have had 20 different SKUs in there. So it wasn't crazy, but
Yeah.
I also had to have an understanding of the product line, right? To be able to identify what are the models that are going to make sense. Because you can't and you shouldn't just give anything to everybody.
What were
anybody.
some? We know, like you just said, white on whites, but what were some that you remember?
Back then, because it wasn't so Church and State, Jordans were huge.
Yep.
And then you've got anything from Max 95s to
Okay.
97s. I mean, things to that degree
Yeah.
are what we kind of had in there to make sure we were giving out carnivores, all the things that were leading this new culture as we know it today, which is so not new.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I had that presence of product to start seeding on people. And then it was big throwback. It was jerseys.
Yep.
It was big jerseys. It was accessories. So even if you didn't land a shoe, because we did a lot of things where I would build a ton of relationship with stylists.
Okay.
So like the June Ambroses of the world. And at certain times, it was like, yo, can you just send us some headbands and wristbands?
Everyone was wearing them,
They
yep.
would all wear them in these different shoots. So it was significant.
in that era, because I think it's interesting to kind of like go back to then, because nowadays with sneaker blogs and Instagram and everything, everybody knows every single shoe and they
Correct.
know every collaboration and every colorway. But I feel like in that era, it's like you knew Jordans, you knew Air Max, and you were into shoes, but you didn't necessarily know every single sneaker release,
Correct.
or you didn't have the information to know that like Nike's releasing this shoe and this colorway,
Right,
and these
and
are
the why.
all the models. So it's like in that era when you were getting people the sneakers, were they like, was everyone really up on every single model, or were you kind of like more introducing them to the product at the time and being
Little bit
like,
of both.
this is what's going to be cool?
A little bit of both. I mean, there were things that you knew would resonate, and there were things that you had an idea, because you also are dealing with somebody who's coming from this, right? I lived this as well. So there were things that were resonating with me that I would think, oh, okay, this is going to work for
They'll
a
understand.
Jada. Oh, they're going to understand. Trainer SC, things to that degree. They're going to get it. If they haven't seen it already, they're going to understand. And then sometimes they'd put in requests. So yes, there was a knowledge at this point where people were already gravitating to certain models. But it was a little bit of both, for sure. For sure.
Did your life change when Fab shouted you out on the rap song?
I think it put me
get my
the
kicks from
target.
Astor.
The target was more on the back of, oh, so that's the guy.
Yeah.
It's like keeping it gangster, right?
That's
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
keeping it gangster. Where Fab shouted me out, and like that wasn't something discussed. That was just something out of love. Like Fab just felt like showing his level of appreciation, which he didn't have to do. Very thankful to him, and even to this day, it's all love whenever we see each other, and a huge amount of appreciation on both ends. But nah, it was just like it didn't. It just that the access and the okay, so that's the guy. Some people actually thought it was a sneaker store. Have you heard that story? Like people
No.
thought Astor was
Wow.
Like
a spot.
Astor Place or something.
They were like, oh, so I got to go to Astor to get the hot joints before they come out.
Yeah.
So that alleviated some of the pressures of people coming to me.
Keep them off your tail,
Right,
right?
keep them off my tail. So yeah, so that was a beautiful thing for him to do, and I think
Great album too.
Great
I remember
album.
being in college listening to that album on loop.
on repeat,
Oh.
on repeat. So the Fabs of the world were great. You know, another part of that role, which again I think was as a catalyst for what you now see, is I created a influencer seeding program. And what I did was we did New York, Atlanta, LA, and Chicago. And we had key individuals. We had one individual in each one of those who would own identifying 10 people in your city, within your village, who you deem as a person that everyone looks up to for whatever reason, that upon associating them with the brand and seeding them with product, people are going to want to gravitate to the product more. I'm breaking it down like this because this is the essence of what influencer truly was about. And again, this was in 98, 99, right? So we set this program up. So I'll never forget, in New York, we had a gentleman by the name of Rob Love who worked at Def Jam. He assembled his. In Atlanta, I had an amazing friend, Shanti Das, who's now doing her wellness journey of shame to silence, silence to shame from a wellness standpoint. So she was in Atlanta. Chicago, I had my man Happy, was heading that up. And then in LA, I forgot the gentleman's name. And in each one, they identified these 10 individuals. So on a quarterly basis, I would fly to each city, and I would sit down with all these influencers, and I'd hand them out the shoes that they were going to be wearing, that we would then ask for the surveys back, similar to what I did in college.
Yeah.
The surveys back of what people thought. And it was a very, very smart move for us as a brand because it was extending outside of just the talent, right? We knew that there was this next layer of individuals who can influence their peers in their respective neighborhoods in an authentic way. So what comes out of this program? I look back 10 years later, and I'm like, yo, do you know who we had in the Atlanta one? Lala, Ludacris, before anybody knew who they were. But you know who stole the show was Chicago. So Happy had John Monopoly.
Crew.
No, listen, the whole crew. Don C, Woody White, Kanye. Ivan wasn't, no.
Okay.
Ivan was not in.
Okay.
But this was the crew that, so I've had a relationship with them way beyond.
We're trying to get John Monop here.
Monop is amazing,
We
bro.
need him.
And Monop was such a visionary there. I mean, Hustle was already in play. Like, they were all part of that Hustle crew.
Was Virgil someone in that?
No, not yet. This, I mean, again, this
But
is,
too young, right?
this is 99, 90, like, so when you look at the individuals that came from this program, they turned and they really started the blueprint for influencers.
Chicago kids. They call themselves the Chicago kids, and that group.
So that was another one where I look back and I say, all right, that was something that triggered another whole culture that we talk about of influencer marketing. I mean, to the fullest. It wasn't about how many, because there was no social media. So there's no like, this is how many followers they have, and that validates them being an influencer. It was more so what they represented within their respective areas of importance in their respective neighborhoods and villages, and how can they continue to influence others through the lens of being associated with Nike in some way. Super powerful.
How stressful was it though to like be the sneaker plug? Because I'm sure like
Yeah.
as great as it is like working with everyone, it's like you're the person who your phone is probably blowing up all the time with everyone wanting everything from you.
So, and I think you asked that question in the context of how we live today and everything being so accessible.
Yeah.
Back then, it wasn't so accessible. Like if you didn't catch me out at a party, or if you didn't have my cell phone, how else were
Wasn't
you
a
really...
DM slide.
There wasn't no
with the
DM, right?
post.
There wasn't anything like that. So
Yeah.
the stress level wasn't heavy as if today. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Like Reggie and Dawn. I mean,
Yeah.
more power to you. I love you both.
Shout out to Don Baxter.
Dawn Baxter. So I helped Dawn get that job. Remember, she came after me to get that job. So I helped position Dawn into that role because she and I.
I hope we can have Don Baxter on here one day.
Oh,
Oh,
that
you
would
will.
be
Dawn,
amazing.
Donnie B. Well, circumstance. We'll figure something.
We
out.
need that. Yes.
Dawn is an amazing human being, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I was talking about. You were asking me about the access. No, it was a different time. I mean, two-way pagers. You had to have somebody's number to actually access, and unless somebody gave them that number, you can't really get at an individual like that. So it was different. It was different. So I didn't feel too much. Plus, I'm enjoying what it is I'm doing, and I'm seeing the benefit. I'm seeing how it's adding a layer of credibility to the brand in a very authentic way. So it was different. Now, if you ask me that today, like I just said, for like a Reggie and a Dawn, I couldn't imagine.
You got enough on your hands of me sliding in the LinkedIn messages.
Yeah. Right?
You know how much history this guy has?
Oh.
We've been here for half an hour already, and we're still in like 99. We still like,
Yeah, no, listen.
This is all the things you achieved in the last millennium.
Right. That was my first stint at Nike, because then I leave Nike, and I go work for Vibe for 4 years, which was amazing. That was a sales job that I took, and it helped me to get some experience in selling, moving. Because I think that in many of us, there's an element of a marketer and a salesman in all of us. So learning how to sell, physical publications and culture. Because I had to sell the culture before I can even sell the magazine. And a lot of these companies were benefiting off the culture, but not having a presence in front of the culture. So I had to help bridge that gap and close it to try to help generate revenue for the book. So did that for 4 years, which was great. And then based off of seeds that were planted in the entertainment marketing role, Pharrell now has become the Pharrell that we all know.
And he said to you, he remembered you. He said, something like I'm paraphrasing, but you tell the story. He said something like, when I do sneakers, you're the guy, or like, you're coming with me, right?
He told me, I caught up with him, Rob, and the crew, and they were like, yo, we're about to do this clothing line. We're going to call it Billionaire Boys Club, and we're going to do ice cream footwear. I said, well, come on, this is right up my alley. He said, say less. Once I get the deal, you're the guy. He gets a licensing deal with Reebok. I then become a Reebok employee, and I'm the brand director for Billionaire Boys Club and ice cream. So essentially, I'm launching and putting the business plan together, the marketing plan, the PR plan, and we're utilizing all the resources within the Reebok ecosystem to pull this off. So I'm the liaison between him, Nigo, and Reebok, essentially, and the strategy business guy that's kind of making this engine run. And that, too, another amazing, amazing experience. And it was during the time when Reebok had S. Carter and 50s. So the point of differentiation, though, those were product deals. Like, they created all that. We came with a licensing deal, meaning we're coming with our likeness that we just need your assistance to help drive and scale according to the plan we're rolling out. So that was a small, the resources. So that was a small nuance that sometimes got a little bit murky.
When did you meet Nigo?
Oh, when did I meet Nigo? Did I meet him here or Japan? I don't remember exactly when I met him, but then was spending tons of time with him because every year we were going to Japan probably 3 to 4 times a year.
So were the Nike lawyers around back then?
No, were they on his neck? I don't remember if they
I'm
were on his neck.
obsessed with this right now, so I have to ask everybody.
I don't remember if they were on his neck at that point.
Yeah.
I do remember when that happened, but I don't remember if it coincided with when.
Wait, you remember when it happened?
Well, was it when I first was at Nike? No,
2009.
Actually, this was later.
Oh wait, I need to know.
This was later. I feel it was later when I came back from my second stint at Nike that it was the heavy, Nike's going after everybody that has any silhouette that feels or looks close to. It definitely was my second stint because that was also during Gourmet.
Oh, this was all Gourmet, Greedy Genius.
Because I was heading up Jordan Footwear when the Gourmet piece. So my first interaction with Buscemi,
how was that?
which it's hilarious, and I don't even know if he remembers this because he and I have reconnected a couple years ago when I was at Adi, because trying to explore bringing him on to be a creator over there. But I was like, wow, the irony of this. My first interaction or dealings with him was we got to shut down Gourmet because it's way too close. It's way too close to that of the identity of Jordan.
That's when they were doing the blue kind of like canvasy. I had a pair of those.
They did the Jordan 7s.
I think they did the 12s.
12s. The 12s are beautiful. That's what resonates. That's what pops in my head all the time.
I had the blue 12s in canvas. Yeah.
So it was during that time that I had to be a part of that team to, I don't want to say shut it down, but seek out. Yeah, so I'm thinking the Nigo piece was during that time, to answer your question.
Were there whisperings inside Nike about that?
About?
Them trying to go after Bape. Was it an open conversation?
I don't know if it was so much open. It was just definitely a topic of, like, there's a lot of noise and connection that they're making to consumers that feels like it's an overlap of what we are trying to create and do from a Nike standpoint. So I do remember that being a thing.
Yeah.
It was definitely a thing. And I wasn't fully involved
For sure.
in
Like
in
I
those
said, I'm just
combos.
obsessed with it right now.
I love it.
I want to go back, though, to BBC Ice Cream and the sneakers. Do you remember the Drop It Like It's Hot video and Pharrell putting the sneakers?
Oh, absolutely.
Talk about that. They blurred them out, I think, on BET or whatever, but I asked Pharrell about them. What do you remember about, like, that moment? It's like a moment, it's etched in history.
It was another moment where you realize you have to utilize the resources that are at your disposal. You have somebody as iconic and as big as Pharrell. Let's take advantage of all this. And Pharrell is the consummate brand ambassador for the things that he gets behind, right? So he is a walking billboard, for lack of a better term, in the most authentic way. So he wanted to make sure these things, I mean, even in his verse with on the Snoop, it was a Snoop joint where he had the verse.
CD's Ice Cube, CD's Ice.
Come on.
Yeah.
So,
Or pay 3 and get yourself some Babesters.
Yeah.
right.
Still on it.
So he was, that moment was just reflective of Pharrell doing what he knew was needed and necessary to make this the thing that he envisioned.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I will always love him for that in many things, because that's another human being that's amazing in terms of his spirit, in terms of his creativity, in terms of him knowing where his gift comes from and his why. I mean, like, he's so locked in right now. I mean, another beautiful announcement.
Yeah.
Louis Vuitton.
LV.
Yeah. Very beautiful. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the impact that he has that goes way beyond the amazing runway shows and collections that he's going to create. There's a huge impact that P can have that will go way beyond that.
Amazing.
Way beyond that. So we were at was there something you were asking about the BBC or
Just that moment I remember when, like, you know, I felt like everything was building up. You were entertainment marketing and seeing people, but then, like, to have that song and that close-up of the shoes, just like probably you were having these moments where you were behind it and you were seeing a lot of that stuff
absolutely.
take fruition.
Come to fruition. And just seeing the way that we could be as disruptive as possible with ice cream in particular. Because when you look at the design, look at the box, right, of the ice cream carton type of deal, and then the graphics that were being used, it was even a point where we were like, all right, well, how about the shopping experience for a consumer when they buy this? What can we do differently? So we seeked out, at that point, Kid Robot was just like a small toy store down in the village. And we're like, wait a minute, you know, in this toy culture and industry, they too have very much of a cult following similar to that of footwear. Could we maybe tap into that mindset and maybe do a blind buy where a kid goes in, they don't know what color they're going to get, but just buy the shoe, right?
And these were the beepers and cigarette shoes.
Yes. So we were like, hey, let's go see what Kid Robot thinks about it. And we did it. We didn't do the blind buy piece, but we were selling the footwear through Kid Robot, which at that point was like, wow, that's so different. Who does that?
Especially trying to explain that to, like, a big footwear corporation like Reebok, like, hey, we're not going to sell your shoes like in Foot Locker and
exactly.
whatnot.
Well, we still went the traditional route of boutiques.
You went boutiques, and then later on the shoes, the Board Flip 2 was available. Like,
and we did more scalable. That was a more accessible
You could buy that at
brand.
Finish Line, et cetera.
And that was Terry Kennedy, I think we had behind that. But yeah, we just wanted to look at different ways to disrupt the market in a way that we can add another level of an experience around the procurement of product, right? It wasn't just, nothing is ever transactional with, you know, special individuals like a Pharrell and what they do. Shouldn't be transactional. It should be an experience. It should be a connection with consumers. And that's what we try to do with all that.
How did you land back at Nike after that?
So was doing the BBC thing and then had our first child, and I got a call from
Bobby?
Bobby. I got a call from somebody saying, hey, look, it's time for you to come back home. We got this gig that we think you'd be great for. We'd love to have you. It's heading up sportswear. At that point, they called it Urban for North America, which is code word for you need to manage the Air Force One business. This is now at a point where Air Force One business alone was $1 billion.
Wow.
Air Force One business at that point was $1 billion on its own. 70 to 80% of that was what? Whites.
No way.
So,
of course, yeah.
Wow.
I come and I'm thinking, you know what? Let's move to Portland. It's a slower pace. Cost of living is a lot better.
Yeah.
Let's take this on. So leave and then come to Portland. This is my first stint in Portland now. So this is 06.
Yeah.
So do that job for a couple months and it's great. And then I move into global sportswear where I'm heading up Urban globally, and Indie was another sub-brand within the portfolio that's more of the boutique style products. And then we had Urbano. We took a stab at like a Latin inspired offering, and then boots. So the Goa Dome and all those things.
Yeah,
so I oversaw those businesses and the teams within that. So the big things that happened there were 25th year anniversary of the Air Force One, which have a hilarious, not really a hilarious story.
You were there for the whole the Kanye
Party?
DJ premiere.
No, I didn't go to that event. I
Okay.
knew about that event. I was not at that event.
Okay.
For some reason I didn't go, and I don't know why. Something else was happening. But working on the plan for that Air Force One was incredible. So, and I don't remember if you remember the rollout of that plan, but the first season in spring, I think we started with what we call like a refinement of the classics and the basics. So a refined approach to the white, to the black, to the mid, and to the high. Craftsmanship, we changed some of the internal nuances to make it a more comfortable, a more quality-made product. And then in summer, we went down this road of looking at, I think, the I-95 corridor, where the Air Force One truly resonated. So we did some storytelling around Baltimore stores, Philly, New York, all the things. Then we went into fall, which was the global. So we had a Paris pair, a London pair, a Toronto pair.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, so how do we want to close the year out? What do you do to close the year out? Mark Dolce. So he was part of the team. He was design. I was heading up all the marketing. He was like, yeah, we got to have the best of both worlds. I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, yeah, we got to do some Jordan Air Force Ones. And I don't know how much, No. Stay with me.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know Mark, but Mark, when he was designing, was a beast. When he had that pen to the paper, I've never seen anything like it. Maybe a day later, he comes back with line art of these amazing Jordan Air Force One silhouettes. Like, to this day, I'm like, if we ever would have did any...
What was it?
He did a 4 on an Air Force One silhouette that...
But different than the fusions that came out? Because everyone's
greater.
going to...
It gets greater later. Let me finish this.
Okay, hold on. Let
Dolce
him
was
go.
the one who had pitched the fusion idea to MJ himself.
Right. So we're like, we can't do this without getting the blessings of the Jordan team.
Yeah.
So we got to take this to Gentry, we got to take it to Tinker, got to take it to the crew. We go, we do it, and there's a reluctancy. They're like, nah, we're cool, da-da-da, boom, boom, boom. Fast forward. So now we're scrambling to figure out what we do. So you get what landed in the marketplace, which was the Barkley Air Force One Fusions, if you remember. In that holiday.
they did that whole collection of
whole collection.
They had the players on the heel, right?
That was spring.
They had
but
the
we
bubble,
ended with
the bubble.
With the bubble, yes.
Yeah.
We took the DNA of all Charles Barkley's signature shoes and infused that into Air Force Ones. They were beautiful. Mark killed that.
The Alpha Force and all that
Exactly,
stuff.
exactly. One had a strap, took the strap from the Alpha Force and all 9 yards. So now fast forward 9 to 12 months later, Gentry being the masterful genius that he is, he saw that this should not just be a seasonal execution. This needs to be something that we can run this for years. Yeah. Hence, fusion comes into play on the Jordan side. Because remember, this was from Sportswear where we pitched this.
Got it.
So now Gentry takes this genius idea, and it's even more genius because if you think about this timeline, retros were owning the market. Yeah. But it was also hitting a wall where it was just a lot of retros that they had to pump out to fill the demand.
This is where you pulled back, right, and did like the countdown packs?
No, they pulled back and did fusions.
Did the fusions do well, contrary to belief how people feel about them?
Well, at the very beginning, they were crazy. It was a phenomenon. Did it fade pretty quickly? Yes. However, it did exactly what it needed to do, because what did it do? It made the demand for retros go higher because there was no supply to meet it. They gave something else to hold so they could rebuild all that momentum and energy, and did small things like those 2-shoe packs and things to that degree to kind of give you a little piece, but it wasn't something where you had to see an 11 or a 3 to the tune of thousands upon thousands.
Yeah, they weren't doing a lot of retro releases at all. I remember being in the store and like working at the time, and like the closest thing we had besides the fusions, which were so annoying to sell because the box had like 17 parts to it. You had to like pull the top. You had to pull it out, and then it had like the plastic piece, and someone's like, "Let me try these on," and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna." And they're like, "No, I need a 9.5 instead of a 9." And you're like, "Oh my god."
Yes.
But the closest you had to that, besides that, was like the Jordan True Flight, which was like the fake-looking 7 shoe.
That's right.
But they sold.
True Flights were everywhere.
Everywhere.
Because you couldn't buy actual Jordan retros. It was almost like the
Hyperdunk for Jordan.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right? And how it resonated and spread. So it was a genius idea that I wish we would have seen what Mark created, because they were very different from what the Jordan team then created on the Fusion side. But it was such a smart move from a business standpoint to do that and stretch it into like a year or two worth of a program, and to get that unrequited demand back and the frenzy on retros that they then were able to return to.
Was there always a challenge? White on whites, where you just said 70 to 80% of the $1 billion Air Force One sales a year. Was Nike ever happy? Like, no, we have to keep seeing what's next, or were they like, you know, were you always trying to find something next in terms of the white on whites? Obviously it was a W for them, but like with anything that you know is going to move, was it like a big celebration, or they kept saying like, we have to see what's next? I
think it was a couple things. I think it was an education for many people who didn't understand the strength of the culture that were doing that. So being 70 to 80% of the business was not reflected of a business plan that was sent into the market to do so. It was more a reflection of consumers reacting and responding to, this is how we're adopting this into our lifestyle. We're making this what it is. Remember, consumers are buying like 3 to 4 pairs at a time.
Yeah.
And what were they at that point? 55?
Yeah.
$55?
Until Nelly. So
this was a true definition of the consumer decided. Consumer decided that. That wasn't a business plan. So to that point, it was, how do you resource and support what consumers are saying and needing? Outside of that, you then surround that with, we're still going to push the envelope of what we want this thing to be. So there were different premium executions or supreme, the higher level versions of it that, of course, you still try to pull. Remember the Visible Air, Vis Air, clear midsoles, all these things, the turned, uppers in terms of the craftsmanship. Still do all those things. Still try to push the envelope of innovation, but not at the expense of taking away the thing that is resonating with the marketplace. So yes, to answer your question, but not to say that we're going to minimize the amount of whites, which they did slow down on some of them so they could build that unrecruited demand back up as well, just because it was just way so many in the market.
Do you remember, was it around that time or when you first realized that Nike internally was paying attention to the resale of these sneakers and that people were using these to make money that Nike was missing out on?
Yeah, that was more so. That was after 2010. I remember those conversations, and the conversations being, so how are we not benefiting from this? And that's when Sneaker App and all those conversations started to come into fruition. Let's create our own space of some sort where we could try to capture that moment. And not to say Nike was ever looking to do resale type prices. That was never the thing. It was just a point of, how do you create a space or an opportunity where consumers can get an experience that was a little bit more elevated, a little bit more seamless, and try to minimize the resale market, which you weren't going to stop that. I mean, that was the birth of entrepreneurship, number one, 101, I should say. And to be honest, I thought it was somewhat of a beautiful thing. Why? You now created another opportunity for people who love this industry and this culture so much to make money off of it. What's the harm in that?
Yeah, y'all made money off of us for years now, for decades now. Can we get a little piece of it?
So now you've helped to springboard an industry and a culture that still actually is even adding more value.
Yeah, it all comes back.
It all comes back. It all comes back. So I was never mad at it. I thought it was a beautiful thing because the business was planned for profit. And so everything that was sold was already done for profit. We've made the numbers that we forecasted.
Yeah.
Right? So if somebody else is now taking it and doing an additional 2x, wow, good for you. Good for you. Now, if the brand chooses to now go and say, well, we want to start our suggested retail, what they're doing now, then that's a business decision you can make. It's all choices. I'm glad that choice was not made. But yeah, it was. I was happy with that. I was happy with that. But going back to like the Air Force One deal, I also remember the conversations on, there was supposed to be an Air Force One door. That was supposed to be a big thing. Like they were going to create an Air Force One door.
Dedicated store.
A dedicated store. And I'll never forget, Sandy Bodecker, rest in peace, amazing leader, amazing dude. He was talking through it, and he was like, you know what? We found a location. And everyone was like, where is it? He was like, New York City. Like, where in New York? This is dope. We knew what we were going to hear. Well, I thought I was going to hear what I was hoping to hear. And he says, yeah, we got it in Soho. I said, wait, so we're doing an Air Force One door in Soho? Now, you got to think about this year. This was 2008. So this is at the peak of the Air Force One being one of the most culturally relevant shoes in the marketplace. This was not sold in Dick's.
Right.
Yep.
This was not suburbia, dirty, wrinkled, wear it however you want to wear it. This was at its purest point. So for me, red flag immediately. goes off. I'm like, Soho?
Yep.
So I'm coming back to a point that you made about my dear friend Betsy Parker, who I had built this relationship with. Part of that relationship was her getting me access to her brother on a regular basis. So I would have quarterly meetings with Mark Parker on a regular.
When he was the CEO.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talk about all things. And I thank him for that space to have a leader who's open to hearing from people who are in the weeds, for lack of a better term. Because a lot of leaders might not do that because they think, I'm the leader, so I need to have all the answers. Mark seeked out and he enabled a number of people to have a voice in front of him that he can then make calculated decisions based off of that. So I say all that to say, I then went into his office one day and we were talking about all the things that we talk about. And I said, look, I just sat through this leadership meeting on this door, Air Force One door, we're doing the celebration. Yeah, I'm really excited. I said, look, putting it in Soho is not going to be the look, Mark.
Yeah.
That is going to be a major disconnect. And it's not going to work well for us in terms of perception, the optic. It's going to look like we're putting an Air Force One door in a place that's comfortable for those who aren't even Air Force One consumers. I left. He said, Astor, thank you for that. Say less. Well, he didn't say less because say less is a now thing. He's like,
Imagine.
I think I got back to my desk. Email to Sandy Bodecker with me copied. Hey, Sandy, excited about everything, but I think we need to rethink the location of this Air Force One door. And so, which then births 21 Mercer.
Yes.
21 Mercer becomes the pinnacle expression of sportswear,
Right.
with components of Air Force One, but not an Air Force One door.
Wow.
And that was a significant moment because we will not know the trajectory of this industry or the brand or the business had Nike put an Air Force One door in Soho in 08.
Wow.
So again, that was another piece when I look back at the history of the Air Force One and just leadership, of a visionary like Mark, hence why that's another big announcement of chair at Disney, and at Nike.
Yeah.
Love it. I applaud him. Super, super happy for him. A true visionary is able to see things and empower people to have a voice to help with it.
Yeah.
There's so much.
We got to get to the Adidas, the recent Adidas
this
stuff.
Dude has done so much.
I know.
How do you go from Nike to Adidas?
Great question. So you know about my daughter Bobby.
Yeah.
So Bobby has a gift of singing and acting, and we were fortunate enough to see how she was bent at a very early age. Like at 5 years old, she told me her favorite artist was Erykah Badu. We played a ton of music around her, but to have the knowledge and the foresight and just to be able to say Erykah Badu at 5, I was like, okay, this is different. So when she graduated from kindergarten, I actually took her to an Erykah Badu concert, and she got to meet Erykah Badu, and the two of them were like kindred spirits. It was one of the wildest experiences I've ever seen. I say all that to say, she had an opportunity to be on Broadway back in 15, 16. And I was still at Nike doing my deal in my career progression and working the beat and doing what I was doing. But I knew that I pretty much hit a ceiling at Nike.
Okay.
I noticed that the culture shifted tremendously, and it wasn't really the culture that I knew I was going to be able to thrive in anymore. I came up at a time where leaders were building leaders, and now it was evolving to like leaders building followers out of fear. It was just a different culture. So be it. It is what it is. And so she had this opportunity, which would have required me to leave to move back here with her to New York to be on Broadway. And I took that jump. And I'm so thankful that the culture was so different at that time, because had it been all hunky-dory and great, I might have had my blinders on to not even allow for that type of conversation.
You're comfortable enough.
We're good. This is the way it's supposed to happen. Yeah. Your father is supposed to be working and having this job so that you're good. You're not supposed to be thinking about, showcasing your gift on Broadway. And that's not even possible. No, it's very possible. And so I left Nike. I left with my daughter. We went to New York. The rest of the family stayed in Portland. So I was doing a back and forth every couple months to try to get back to see the family. And, she and I stayed in New York in the same apartment I grew up in.
Amazing. Oh, wow.
Right? With my mom. She's still there on the Upper West Side. Wow. I slept in the bed that I grew up in, and my daughter slept with my mother, and they built an amazing bond. But my daughter essentially had the opportunity to be on an Andrew Lloyd Webber production, School of Rock, part of the original cast. So, she's performing at the Tonys. She's performing every night on Broadway. I'm checking off a bucket list. She performed at the White House for Michelle Obama.
Ooh.
So like I'm in the
amazing.
White House. Yeah, like that. So this was part of the transition for me in my walk, in my journey of my purpose, and realizing that it was no longer about success, which brings value to me. It was about significance, which brings value to others. And I had to be an example of that by taking a step to the side so that my daughter's gift could shine and touch and inspire way more people than I ever would have been able to inspire, and water that seed, which was a magical experience. So did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then we come back to Portland. I'm like, all right, because that's a full-time job. I'm father, I'm learning coach because now she's online schooled. I'm her manager,
Okay.
I'm all the things. And so amazing experience that then brings me back to Portland, and I'm like, all right, let me look for a gig. Let me see what's going on there. Clark and Wex, I hit up, and Wex was like, yo, I think you need to, Clark was like, you need to talk to Wex, 'cause I think they got something
Okay.
over there that would make sense for you. So I sit down with Wex, and we catch up, and we chop it up. He's like, yeah, they're looking for somebody to head up the Yeezy business. Would you be open to that? I'm like, absolutely. The relationship, the history. And so I say, yeah. Typical, I don't hear anything for like 4 or 5 months. So I'm like, okay, so they weren't serious. Then I get a call from Adidas like, hey, we apologize for that delay. We had a reorg. And in reorging some things, we actually have a different opportunity that we'd love for you to explore. Would you be open to heading up all of our music businesses from a business standpoint, except Yeezy? I said, oh, okay. So now it's reunited, and it feels so good because Pharrell has his business there. Pusha is over there, who I love.
And this is like peak, like Ultra Boost, NMD, like
Yes.
Adidas is on fire.
Adidas on fire.
And I'm thinking, okay, we can do this because Adidas, I go back to the Nike time. You know, when Nike was on top of the world, you would never hear them talk about, we'd never talk about competitors. You're not even thinking about anybody else.
Like blinders on. Just
Blinders. We are thinking about what it is we need to do and be great at what we do. We can care less about any of the what? Noise. Go to Adidas, that's all they're talking about. What is Nike doing? How are we doing? And it's like, this is a different mindset. So I thought this opportunity would be the opportunity for us to be the one, because as part of coming over, they were like, we need you to help launch, put the team and vision together for what? Beyoncé Ivy Park. So I'm like, okay, we got some tools here. We got some things that can really shake this industry up. So that was my coming back into the industry for that role that I felt could drive a significant amount of change in the marketplace for so many reasons. First off, you're behind a black woman in the footwear space. I mean, that's never been done, to have a prominent play within it, to then hire a full-on female-led, minority-driven leadership team for that business, which was awesome. To have a launch that set the tone on something and shook up the footwear world, and had everybody like, okay, wait, if they keep this Yeezy business going and this, and maybe get 1 or 2 more things, we really need to start looking around.
Was one of those other 2 more things Drake, maybe?
No, the Drake thing wasn't in the mix. It was so we had Jonah that came in, and it's not the big things, but I think it's what are the significant things that you're doing to send a message and be reflective of the change that you needed. And one of them I felt was Yara Shahidi. And so I was a big advocate of getting her into the mix. Why? What she represents for youth culture and everything that she is, I felt like I needed my daughters and people who look like her to be able to see somebody like her winning in this space. So it was things like that that were, you might call them small change indicators, but they would lead to big validation moments of how the brand is moving forward.
Did you have Cuddy?
Cuddy was there.
What was that like?
Cuddy was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do shoes.
Cuddy was interesting. Cuddy was
Wanted
interesting.
to do a T-shirt.
Yeah, it was interesting. We did some things with him. I wish we could have done more, to be honest. But it was interesting. And then you had Pharrell, who was running his piece and trying to relook at what that business model looked like.
Yeah.
You had Pusha.
I know you saw the Drake put in the pitch deck or something. Come on, tell me.
No, I had nothing. Yeah, I never saw a Drake situation. I obviously later got pulled into some Yeezy stuff.
Yeah.
But the Drake stuff, I never.
But you were there like Pharrell at like ComplexCon, like chucking the boost balls off.
No, I was not there. That was, I think I came after that. But yeah, he was still in a great place with his business model and trying to evolve what the next thing was going to be for him. So again, I just thought it was a great time for the brand to get out its own way and actually put some pressure on some others in the business to be the brand that I felt like it had the opportunity to be.
And then I feel like you were really heavily involved, correct me if I'm wrong, with Kerwin stuff?
Very. So
Okay.
that was another one where getting him into the mix, I just think what he represents for youth culture
Totally.
goes way beyond footwear. It's something about being your authentic self unapologetically. And if the brand can get behind individuals like that, again, you set the tone. There's such a responsibility that we have in these positions to empower those that we feel can help be change agents for society in a collective way, right? It's so easy to get behind this person has all these followers and they have such a scale and a reach. We just want to do that. Okay, but what are they driving in terms of change? Is there anything that they're really standing for that helps us get to a better place collectively?
Right.
The business will figure out. But like
Selling shoes, that's easy.
Selling shoes and T-shirts, that's easy. And that's why somebody like a Yara, it was so imperative to have her in. Somebody like a Kerwin, it was so imperative to get in. And that's all the partnership with a Wex to say, look, let's go in and make this happen. Because Wex owned the relationship. He owned the contract dealings and all that to bring these people in. And we owned all right, let's build a plan, the vision around what this looks like. And it was, Wex and I are still dear friends to this day.
It must have felt good to be with someone like him because you mentioned, leaving Nike because it didn't really feel, it didn't feel right. And then you have Wex, who's like a OG shoe industry guy who like genuinely cares all about that. And it must have brought that energy back.
Oh, it was dope. We fed off each other on so many situations, so many. And you're right. It was great to have a partner that you can, have real discussions with, right? Whether we agree or disagree, we always aligned.
Yeah.
Always aligned. And you need that type of advocacy and partnership in many of these rooms because you're much stronger together, right? As opposed to trying to have agendas that are different. And we maximize as much as possible. Let's get aligned.
Did your old friends at Nike give you a hard time for
a little bit? I think
signing up at Adidas?
Some of them were like, yo, you've really got this thing. You've got people talking over here. So blinders were now off. And I think that was probably one of, I don't want to say the best, it was a great feeling to be able to see them recognizing like there's something happening that we need to be super cognizant of and be prepared for. What's our response? What's our response to this, right? Because, even what we did with, like, Donald Glover was dope when we did the Coachella activation, which was hot, where a certain area in the outer boundaries were able to access his shoe. So there were a number of moments that were pretty legendary that I felt could have fueled a charge of Adi making a serious stamp on, no, we're here, we're about this change, we're about this opportunity.
And now it brings us to, I know you were at Beats, but it brings us to your new project.
Yes.
You've dropped so many gems on this podcast. Just to let you know, Astor, an hour and a half.
Is that what we've been doing?
It went very quickly. I feel like we could go forever, but even an hour and a half is a long time.
I know
for us.
this is why it's a good thing that you have your own podcast because I wish we could have you here for 3 more hours.
This was a nice
space
preview of Culture Raises Us.
Yes.
Every Thursday.
Talk
about that project. We're going to hear more of these footwear stories, I'm sure, on your podcast.
So I think it's a moment of, you capitalize on all these experiences you have. So when I look at culture's at the core of everything. How many times we've spoken about culture today, right? So it's at the core of everything, whether you grew up in a culture, you've worked in a culture, or you've helped shape a culture, right? And I look at, we bring on the cultivators and the purveyors of all these different cultures to come talk about when they noticed these cultures become bigger than these things become bigger than what they ever imagined. The seed that they watered, and it's now become a thing, and how it affected so many people. And I'm realizing and I'm seeing in these stories that there's very transferable principles and values that people can take into their respective journeys, right? So whether you're somebody that's coming on and you're being taught or you're learning about a culture, right? So it's like a history lesson. That's one. Or it's somebody coming on and they're like reminded of, oh, damn, that's right. We did do that. Or this person is behind that. Or these people helped create that. For all of those, you get a moment of motivation and inspiration to say, okay, now that I know this, what do I do? That's what this platform is all about. So we have cultivators coming from all facets of culture: music, fashion, TV, arts, wellness, all the things. And we do it every Thursday. And the goal is to share these stories. I think I open up the show with, to whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. And I feel like in everything that I do at this point, it's a matter of sharing. I'm sharing information to help with this next generation on how they're going to help shape culture and cultures moving forward.
I love that.
I'm surprised at you. We're talking about culture. Astor, we need your help on this.
Talk to me.
What have you been talking about before he came in that you were going to get him to validate?
The one thing we need to talk about.
I
So
don't know what this is on, bro.
no. Oh yeah, I forgot. So people have been asking us to talk about this on the podcast for quite some time.
This is
Has it
important.
happened?
Before we go.
Okay, go, yeah.
So where I met you was at ComplexCon.
Correct.
In the lobby.
Yeah, we were at the bar talking music.
With Clark Kent and Abdul and everything. And the one thing we had all just came from was the Sneaker of the Year panel. And everyone wants us to talk about the Sneaker of the Year panel.
Even still, months later?
I see a little comment.
They're like, when are they going to address the Sneaker of the Year panel?
But mostly,
the one thing that we talked about is that somehow the Gucci Gazelle got slandered as a shoe that wasn't a part of the culture. That was like the discussion on the stage. I remember we were talking after that, and you were like, "That's crazy that someone would say that Gucci and Gazelle has nothing to do with like this sneaker culture."
Yeah.
You know, and.
So what's the question?
The question is, and we're making a private conversation public, but like, you stand behind the Gucci Gazelle, right?
Yeah.
Listen, Astor Chambers validated the Gucci
Let's
Gazelle.
go.
I don't know what else you need.
That's all we need.
Listen, to be completely honest with you, all these lists that people do of top whatever, super subjective.
Yeah.
Right? People can say and do, because Jim Jones' commentary just I mean, this is a dude that still wears shocks.
But can you wear it on Easter? That's
right.
like the whole
Yo, it was such a great conversation.
Really good, entertaining. But the comments on YouTube were different than what it felt like.
Or how did the Khaled 5 get so high?
Well, it was different what it felt like in that room, because I stand by that panel. I loved that panel in that room. I was like,
it was electric.
It was electric, and you had great people. Vash, I mean, come on, Jada. Love all of them.
Yes. For the Gucci Gazelle, they were like, "What's going on at Complex?" And I love the Gucci Gazelle still.
Yeah, listen, that's a valid one. I mean, and I'm looking at James's his 4. Number 1 for me, subjective.
Okay.
Subjective, because again, there's so much more to it than just the finish. It's the storytelling. It's what James is doing. Yeah. What James is all about. Yeah. And he killed the design. I mean, he murdered.
Yes.
Over Louis Vuitton Air Force Ones?
For me, 1,000%.
Number 1.
For me.
And you're the Air Force One guy, so.
But I don't even wear Air Force One. So that's another thing. I don't wear them. I'm aware of them, right? So for me, James's was my number 1 out of that group.
I'm in Air Jordan 4.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, we could do this for days.
I know, but listen, this is a good tease, because they're getting gems and these stories and more. Culture Raises Us every Thursday, where you get your podcast.
Man, I appreciate y'all.
I'm listening. I'm tuning in.
So happy to have you. Once you get to maybe the 100th episode of Culture Raises Us, you come back and we do another, because we just scratching the surface. It's been so easy to talk to you. So great.
I have like 40 more names of random people who worked at Nike over the past 30 years. I just want the stories on, but we're going to wait.
No, we can wait, because there's tons of more stories to discuss. And I just thank you all for this outlet. Timing is everything, because I've been talking to you two in different circles and ways to make this happen. I'm just grateful that this one came together. This is awesome. And I look forward to doing it again, because there's a ton more to discuss, and this culture is growing. Yep. It's not going anywhere, and you guys have a responsibility on how it's kind of captured.
Definitely.
So I appreciate that.
Astor, thank you so much. As we said, Culture Raises Us every Thursday, where you get your podcast. Make sure you go check that out. All right, guys.
Thank you.
What a week.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
And this has been the Complex Sneakers Podcast. We hope everyone has a great weekend. Please like, subscribe. We will see you next week.